Summertime is lemonade time, and in the South, it's also sweet tea time for picnics. This topic came up today because a new contact on LinkedIn messaged me and said that she is decreasing her lemonade and her sweet tea because she is decreasing her sugar. Interesting that within 24 hours, a client said, "Oops, I just got diagnosed with very high A1C," and side note, A1C is an indicator of how your blood sugar has been doing over the past 3 months. So it was double where it should be. So I thought, it's time that we deal with sugar. Welcome, I'm Sheri Traxler with Nourish Life, author of Go Forward, 28 Days to Eat, Move, and Enjoy Life God's Way. Thank you for being here. Thank you for subscribing and clicking that notification bell. We are getting started on a 2-part series on sugar. And it was actually going to be a 1-part, and then in the threads in social media where I was beginning to discuss this, someone brought up a topic that'll actually make it a 2-parter, but I'm going to get to that. How do you decrease your sugar intake, if you're wanting to do that, without creating a diet mentality? And a little warning, if you are dealing with diabetes or dealing with an eating disorder, listen to your healthcare provider, your team that is working with you. This information that I'm sharing today is information for the general public. It may not be appropriate for you. I wanted to find out what you knew about this, wanted to know about this, how you handle sugar. So I reached out to you on social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. Thank you for all of your responses. And by the way, if we've not connected on social media, reach out, let's connect. It was interesting and insightful, the responses that I got back from you. I asked if you tend to eat, drink, avoid your sugar or something else. And it was interesting. 50% said that you eat your sugar. 20% said that you limit your sugar. 20% said that you drink it. And 10% said that you avoid it completely. And those who avoid it completely, I'm assuming that you mean processed or concentrated sugars, not that you don't eat fruit or anything at all that has any type of sugar in it, because then you would just be eating meat. You couldn't even eat vegetables. The comments I thought were brilliant because some people were bringing up the difference of how they handled a concentrated sugar or a processed sugar versus a fruit like these blackberries that I just saw today are starting to ripen. As we discuss in a little bit, sugar that's in fruit itself is different because of, well, the sugar itself is not different, but it's different in how your body processes it because of how it's packaged. One person talked about, and I thought this was interesting, that they do not consume processed, concentrated sugar like in a fruit juice unless it is fresh. So everybody has their take on this. Someone else said, "Oh, I tend to eat it, but I'm doing better on not eating too much." You got any ideas on willpower and discipline? So that's going to be actually part 2 of this, because sugar does interact with both our psyche as well as our taste buds, our digestive system, how it makes us Anyway, I'm not going to get into it now, but know that in part 2 of this, we're going to talk about discipline and willpower related specifically to sugar. Why is this even important to talk about? Sugar is a sticky substance, and it's also a sticky issue. And we're not going to demonize it, and we're also not going to make it a saint. And I am going to deal with some science here, so if you're not a science junkie, go ahead and skip ahead about 90 seconds. Sugar is not toxic, at least in the sense that truly toxic substances are dangerous. However, it has been shown actually proven to cause one health issue, and that is tooth decay. But the ones that people often talk about of malnutrition, diabetes, obesity, it's kind of a mixed bag on what we see around research for those three. Let's take one, for instance, diabetes. In some countries where you have seen an increase in processed sugar consumption, you also see an increase in diabetes. But guess what? In other countries, you see an increase in sugar consumption and you don't see an increase in diabetes. There have been some animal studies that have shown directly that very high, not just a little bit high, very high consumption of processed sugar does induce diabetes-like symptoms. So it is a mixed bag there. The word of warning is be careful. What about malnutrition? Because that also has multiple factors going on. The key related to malnutrition that comes out in the research is, yes, it definitely can be a factor if someone is replacing food, real food, with sugar. That real food that would have other vitamins, other minerals, other nutrients, if it's being replaced by sugar, that is going to result in malnutrition. For obesity, research is also very clear that whether it's too many carbs, too many fat grams, too much protein, too much of anything can set you up for obesity. Sugar is a little special in how it sometimes can make you crave more because of how it impacts appetite, but sugar itself does not cause obesity any more than excess protein or excess fat would. All of these have multiple factors. So what do we do about this? First off is, with anything, you know how I push on this, principles. We want to look at principles, not set up hard and fast rules, okay? Because when you set up those hard and fast rules, number one, you're going to rebel against them. And number two, they're not going to be appropriate for every situation. But the principles, those flex depending on your situation. The principles don't flex, but they flex in how it's applied to you. So first principle on this, consume foods in combination. Because when you eat sugar or a very high sugar food by itself and it hits your digestive system, takes off running in your body and makes you hungry faster. And I remember the first time this was introduced to me, my 4th grade teacher, we were talking about how if you eat a candy bar, how you have a lot of energy and then crash after that, versus if you eat something that is a balanced meal and then you have a little something a little sweet with that, how your blood sugar stays more stable and you keep your energy steady over time. So even in 4th grade, I was learning this, so you probably were in elementary school introduced to this concept as well. Second, know the difference between a whole food and a processed or concentrated form of sugar. We've got apple and we've got, well, it looks like apple juice. It's actually an herbal infusion because I didn't have apple juice, so this looks close enough, right? Okay, anyway, back to what we're talking about. An apple has 19 grams, depending on the size, but ballpark, 19 grams of sugar in it. Apple juice, or what's supposed to be apple juice has 24 grams, a cup, and this is a cup, 24 grams of sugar. Now, what's the difference in that? Number one, this is going to have about a teaspoon more of sugar in it. But the bigger difference is this has fiber. So when I eat this, it fills me up more. The other thing that it does related to intuitive eating is I'm chewing this, and therefore it's hitting my digestive system slower. It's getting into my body slower. This goes in and immediately hits my blood sugar and spikes it, right? Okay, so whole food versus processed or concentrated food. And the third is frequency. This was so funny in a client's food journal that when you do a food journal, now I do not recommend doing food journals forever because it can cause a diet mentality, but doing a food journal for a week or two can give you a sense of what's going on in your relationship with food. As she was keeping her food journal and was reviewing it with me, she would say, okay, she had a large brownie one day. Okay. And she said, not a big deal because it's been forever since I've had a brownie. The next day it was, I had a big bowl of ice cream that night. Oh, but it's been forever since I've had ice cream. And the next day it was something else, and it was on and on and on. Each day was something different, but each day had something that was a large volume of sugar. Now, is this a problem? Depends. If she is getting all of her nutrients in, and this is something above that, and it's not causing malnutrition, great. If she is eating within the volume of food that her body is calling for, intuitively eating, she's physically hungry, she's eating slowly, she's eating what she really wants, she's stopping when she's no longer hungry. But as we looked at this as a whole picture, that wasn't what was happening. It was she had been depriving herself of things for so long, and she had all these food rules around it that was actually what she was dealing with. It wasn't that I really wanted a brownie or I really wanted a bowl of ice cream and I ate it intuitively and mindfully and stopped when I was satisfied. So that's why looking at anything, even sugar, in a silo can get you into trouble. I mentioned intuitive eating. Let's go ahead and put the sugar dilemma and intuitive eating together. This is an experiment that I use with clients. It's something I encourage you to do in workshops. 3 things I want you to do. Number 1 is when you are thinking about eating something that is high sugar or drinking something that is concentrated form of sugar, ask yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do I really want this? Also ask yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do I want to feel what I'm going to feel after I've eaten this? Second is make sure that when you are eating it, that you're not eating distracted, that you are slow and savor in your eating. Whenever you are having a hankering for a brownie and you have it, but you have it while you're distracted working or watching TV or something else, it's way too easy to eat past satisfaction. And that brings us to the next piece, which is stopping when you're satisfied. Big part of intuitive eating is tuning in, and when your body says, I've had enough, you stop. Bottom line is 1, listen to your body. It will tell you what it needs, when it needs it, how much it needs. It will tell you, oh, those 2 bites were really fun, but I'm done now. Or it will say that it wants more. It will let you know. It will let you know also later on how you feel. Second is eat as close to how God made the food as you can, and you're going to be much better off in the long run. And third is watch next week's video because we're going to talk about willpower and discipline related to sugar. I want to give a quick thank you shout out to my old nutrition book, Understanding Nutrition from college, where I pulled up the science on malnutrition and diabetes and obesity related to sugar. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for being here. Remember to subscribe so you can make sure to get all of these videos. And until next time, find your unique path and fulfill your potential.